Arlington High students stage a play that talks about their generation by the classic rock band that put out My Generation. The Who? Correct. Music by The Who. The what, where's, whys, and hows are all explained later on in this newscast. ACMi News starts right now.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered. We're your neighbors, a friend you can turn to, giving you stories that count from people who care, dedicated, determined, dependable. This is ACMi News.
Arlington's 2022 town election is now history. There were 4 uncontested townwide races and a number of town meeting races. When it came to the race for town moderator, for some, the evening held some surprises. Hello, I'm Drew Weisberg.
And I'm James Milan. John Leone, who has led town meetings since 2007, was unseated by challenger Greg Christiana. We'll get to that story in just a moment, but first, brutal war crimes continue in Ukraine. ACMi News talks to a married couple holed up in Kyiv. They tell us what the Ukrainian president is telling the world, that their country needs much more than just sanctions. We'll have the latest. Face masks are now optional on the school buses of Arlington Public Schools. This as hopes remain high that we are slowly crawling out from the depths of this COVID-19 pandemic. And from the 60s, AHS students see the glory, get opinions, heck, they get the story. A 2022 version of The Who's rock opera Tommy hits the stage, and you don't have to go to Soho or Brighton to see it. We have a report.
But first, our top story. Arlington residents went to the polls earlier this week, casting votes for 5 townwide races and the races for town meeting members in all 21 precincts. 4 of the 5 townwide races were uncontested. They were races for Select Board, School Committee, and there were 2 races for the Board of Town Assessors. The contested race was for Town Moderator. In that race, challenger Greg Christiana unseated incumbent John Leone by more than 200 votes. Christiana received 2,420 votes to Leone's 2,162. Town Clerk Julie Brazil made the announcements of all the votes tallied shortly after 9 p.m. on April the 2nd.
I will start with the contested race for moderator. Greg Christiana has won 2,420 votes to John Leone's 2,162 votes. The other races are not contested. There will be updates on the town meeting races as we go. Their turnout was 14.75%, 4,700 approximately registered voters of the 32,000 Arlington residents cast ballots today. So there'll be more updates over the next couple of days on the elections webpage as we continue to update the files and reports with precinct breakdowns as we generate those reports. Thank you very much.
According to Your Arlington and the town clerk's office, there was a voter turnout of slightly less than 15%. ACMi News had the chance to talk to Greg Christiana this week at Studio A after the challengers secured a victory in the race for town moderator. Here's ACMi News Director Jeff Barnd.
For some, the only townwide office that was contested this year yielded a relatively unforeseen result. Greg Christiana, a Google engineer with some pull with Arlington's younger residents, pulled off what some consider to be an unexpected victory in the 2022 town election on Saturday, April the 2nd. He unseated incumbent town moderator John D. Leone, who has led town meeting now for 15 years. ACMi's communications manager, James Milan, spoke to Mr. Christiana about Christiana's campaign and the newly elected moderator's aspirations moving forward.
First of all, why did you do it? And how did you pull this off?
Yeah, so there were lots of conversations early on when there were folks who initially encouraged me to consider running. And I wanted to kind of expand those conversations to more folks to get more diverse perspectives, to make sure I wasn't just talking to some echo chamber, and that, I didn't want to sign on to something that was going to just really kind of fall flat when it hits reality, right? So I wanted to get some sense, like, is there something there? And like probably every town meeting member, you're sitting there during like hour after hour of town meeting, and it's like I'm probably every single town meeting member has the thoughts from time to time of like, well, there's some things I might do differently, or if I were running the meeting, right, I would do this, right? And so I never really had like a strong ambition to actually kind of pursue that. It was just kind of thoughts, right? Like I'm sure everyone has, right? The things that I want to change, it's like, well, we have to invent things as we go. Like if there's any adjustments to the speaker queue, it's like, well, we have to change that. If there's any change to how we handle the consent agenda, it's like, well, we have to invent that, right? Or look at like what precedent there is across all the other town meetings in Massachusetts. And so kind of innovating in these areas where I really want us to innovate is one kind of challenge, especially with everything, having this like very short transition period and having to get up to speed on not just how to do the job in general, but the specifics of planning this particular town meeting with these particular articles and so on.
Christiana credits his campaign team and supporters who shared his vision, from people with decades of service to Arlington to relatively new arrivals, and that the diversity of viewpoints and exchange of ideas completely enriched Christiana's campaign. Christiana also said he wanted to thank John Leone for his long service as moderator and for running a strong campaign, and that this race provided an opportunity to discuss many ideas for updating town meeting and also encouraging engagement. As he begins the job of moderator, overseeing town meeting and also making committee appointments, Greg Christiana says he hopes to engage more Arlingtonians in decisions that will indeed affect us all in the future. You can get the very latest numbers in all of the town-wide races and the races for town meeting members in all 21 precincts. All you have to do is go to the town website, arlingtonma.gov. Again, that's arlingtonma.gov. For ACMi News, I'm Jeff Barnes.
Galveston, Texas police say an Arlington man died over the weekend while competing in a triathlon in Galveston. 46-year-old Daniel Winkler was found unconscious off of Galveston Beach on Sunday morning during the swimming portion of the triathlon. According to beach patrols on duty, emergency crews rushed Winkler to an ambulance, then rushed him to an area hospital where he was later pronounced dead. Even though it's too early to tell why Winkler was unconscious, police say it's not uncommon to have that happen during the swimming portion of the event. Earlier this week, the Ironman triathlon organizers posted this on Facebook. "We share our greatest sympathies for the family and friends of the athlete and will continue to offer them our support as they go through this very difficult time." The annual Galveston Ironman Triathlon draws athletes from all over the country with a 1.2-mile swim, a 56-mile bike ride, and a 13.1-mile road race. An investigation into Winkler's death is ongoing.
As of April 1st, face masks became optional on the buses of Arlington Public Schools. Superintendent Dr. Elizabeth Holman made the announcement at last week's school committee meeting. Dr. Holman says masks will continue to be required indoors at Monotony Preschool, since most pupils there are too young for the COVID-19 vaccine. According to Your Arlington, Arlington Public Schools have had a few virus outbreaks since March 7th, when the school district made mask wearing optional in grades K through 12. Still, the number of COVID cases is down since late last month. Targeted masking has been put into effect inside individual classrooms. Targeted masking means that masks are either required or strongly recommended depending on the specific circumstances. The affected schools for target masking are Bishop, Pierce, Dallin, Hardy, and Thompson Elementary. Meanwhile, coronavirus testing continues weekly or twice weekly on all district campuses.
The Biden administration is imposing sweeping new sanctions on Russia. Most sanctions now include targeting Vladimir Putin's 2 adult daughters in response to atrocities in Ukraine that the White House has called war crimes. Meanwhile, ACMi News is keeping in touch with a married couple in Ukraine who told us that they will take up arms and fight if necessary. ACMi News recently spoke to John and Natasha Sennett, who live in the old city section of Kyiv. This is what they had to say.
Звук, який став звичним для усіх наших міст. Це було 20 секунд. А ми чуємо це годинами, днями, тижнями.
It was there was a lot of fighting going on the last 3 to 4 days, and then it slowed down today, and it's completely quiet for about 9 hours now, 10 hours.
Which is like the first break we had
In a while.
Yes. When the fighting is going on, it's kind of, you can't just relax. It's one of those things, you lay in bed and you think, do we run? Do we stay? What do we do? Because sometimes air sirens, they would start like really close. You know that it's in the area. So the danger is close by somewhere. Sometimes you just hear them in the distance, so you know it's kind of far. So maybe you get lucky. So in the past 4 days, it was kind of, it's just that unsettling feeling of in your stomach, like, what do we do? So finally, we came out today, we walked the dog, and a lot of soldiers outside.
Be under no doubt, this European capital is fast turning into a battlefield. There are troops on street corners and under bridges. Armoured vehicles constantly crisscross the city, bolstering positions, waiting for the enemy.
As in prior to that, they're around, but they kind of move about very quickly and quietly. So today is just, they're out in the open everywhere. And it's kind of nice to see that because it makes you feel secure and safe. I know maybe it's just hopeful and wishful thinking, but it just makes you feel like you're protected. And so they're out moving about out in the open today in Kyiv.
It seems to be, according to military experts here, that Vladimir Putin is not getting good intel. He's not getting good military intelligence on the ground. And this has been a debacle so far on the part of his army, which on the face of it could be good news, but it can also mean that if he's desperate enough, he's going to be doing some things that are just absolutely unconventional. What are you hearing in Ukraine?
We're hearing the same thing from the Ukrainian authorities, and they're expecting to be encircled, or that they're going to try and encircle the Donbass and put all their forces there, and that chemical weapons could come into play. They're already using phosphorus over there, which is all illegal under the Geneva Convention. But I think that the Ukrainians probably, they know that they're coming, just whether or not they have enough weapons and enough men and women at this point to hold them off. That's the big thing. And then as far as Putin is concerned, they're not saying that he's crazy.
Putin is considering himself a messiah.
He's a messianic complex.
Yeah, and he firmly believes that he is saving Russia by, making Russia stronger and all of that, nonsense. So at this point, this is when somebody's obsessed with that idea. It's just that I don't see him giving up and just realizing all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, I was wrong.
Right.
Maybe I didn't really. So yeah.
So nobody knows how this thing ends, even the Ukrainians.
Nobody does.
And nobody trusts what the Russians say so far.
And we also have this feeling like it's going to be quiet before storm. It's just nice to have this break because last week it was just terrible.
Are you dissatisfied with what the West is doing?
I'll give you a very clear answer on that. I understand that you can't do a no-fly zone. I understand that you can't engage Russian troops or jets directly, but I don't understand why you can't give offensive weapons to Ukraine for fighter jets, anti-ship, and anti-air missiles. I don't get it at all, whatsoever. I mean, Russia's not playing by the rules. Why should we?
Well, Russia only understands force. Not Russia, but Putin and his crew understand force, and he's like a bully. And talk with bullies is force. They understand only one kind of
you have to punch them in the mouth, basically.
You have to kind of stop it right then and there. So talking with them and negotiating with them is just, it's a waste of time for everybody. They only understand if they're stopped by force. Otherwise, they will just be, well, you know, we did that, maybe we could do something else.
This should not be a party line issue. This should be a united issue. Get us the weapons. Get President Zelensky and the Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian Air Force the weapons they need, and they will wipe this thing up.
Huge explosions woke everyone in Kyiv as the Russian mission continues. Fiery debris falling onto residential buildings below. This is life in Kyiv now.
And ACMi News will keep in touch with the Senates as events warrant in that war-torn country.
What to recycle, what not to recycle? That is the question.
Besides stealing from Hamlet, we are doing some trash talking.
Mainly how to properly dispose of your 21st century refuse, and who better to talk to than an expert from the town's Department of Public Works.
Hello, I'm Jane Commons, and I'm the intern at the Arlington Department of Public Works. Today I'm here with Shannon Linlau, who is the Waste and Diversion Compliance Officer. We're here at Spy Pond to talk about Shannon and her job, as well as some mistakes that you might be making with your trash and recycling. So to get started, Shannon, what are some of your most important jobs as the Waste and Diversion Compliance Officer?
So a main aspect of my job is being literally on the curb in the mornings before the recycling truck comes through, checking people's curbside bins to make sure that they're recycling properly.
Cool.
And then if they aren't, I would give them a sticker, and then that results in their recycling just not being picked up that week.
Okay. And what are some of the most common items that you have to put a sticker on that ensures that the recycling doesn't get taken?
Soft plastics like plastic bags or bubble wrap and plastic films. Cartons like the kind that you would get if you got oat milk or broth, those types of cartons, and black plastic.
Okay.
So like black plastic takeout containers. Got to go in the trash.
Oh, okay. But just to clarify, it's not like a plastic milk carton, it's just like the papery cartons?
Right. Plastic milk, like jugs are good.
They're good.
Paper cartons, bad.
Okay.
I was curious about other rules and regulations similar to the ones regarding milk cartons, so I asked if there will be any changes to the system in the coming months. And here's what she had to say.
Yes, definitely. This November, actually, and this is coming from the state level, we will no longer be able to put textiles, so like old clothes, sheets, curtains, whatever, or mattresses in the trash.
And what made you interested in pursuing this job as the Waste and Diversion Compliance Officer?
Sure. Well, it was advertised as there being a fair amount of walking.
Yeah.
I love to be outside and I love to walk. I didn't mind the early morning hours at all, and I've always been passionate about sustainability and especially reducing plastic pollution.
Although Shannon's job is purely beneficial to our community, she still experiences conflicts, most notably when people call in if their trash or recycling got missed that day. Shannon also mentioned that she experiences some internal conflicts, like when she has to sticker someone for recycling incorrectly.
So I feel really guilty when I have to sticker people's recycling. I feel bad about it. So I'd like people to know that we're not trying to get people in trouble. It's more like recycling education right on the curb.
Yeah.
Is how I think about it to make myself feel a little better.
Yeah.
As important as recycling is to our community, there are also so many other components involved in sustainability. Shannon talks about the other two R's, reduce and reuse, that work in association with recycling, and how they work into her work philosophy.
My philosophy towards my work is that recycling can only get us so far, right?
Yes.
And I wish that people would also think about the first two R's, reduce and reuse.
Yes. And what are the metrics for measuring success as the Waste and Diversion Compliance Officer?
It would be really cool to see less contamination in people's recycling bins after time goes on, after I'm doing this for a while maybe, and increased participation at some of our weekend and weekday recycling events.
Thank you for joining Shannon and I here at Spy Pond. I know I have learned a lot about what to recycle and what not to recycle, and I hope you have too. Stay tuned for more videos from the DPW similar to this one. Next up, you can hear about changes in textile disposal. Thank you for watching. I'm Jane Commons.
Thanks, guys. How do you think they do it?
I don't know.
What makes them so good?
Well, James, for one thing, they ain't got no distractions. Arlington High School is staging the classic rock opera, Tommy.
Who?
Arlington High School.
No, I mean by The Who?
Oh yes, classic rock. You'll see the Acid Queen, the Doctor, and of course, the Pinball Wizard.
I hope they don't smash the mirror this time. That's 7 years bad luck.
Okay, now that we've exhausted all the Tommy references, here's a sneak preview produced by the AHS students themselves.
The AHS Drama Club is performing The Who's Tommy at the Watertown Mosesian Center for the Arts on April 8th, 9th, and 10th. Tickets can be ordered online ahead of time. I had the privilege of talking with some cast and crew members about their upcoming performance.
So we are producing The Who's Tommy. We've been working for a couple of months now, since the beginning of January, and there's been a couple of hiccups throughout the way, but it's all really starting to come together.
So The Who's Tommy is about a family, first and foremost. It's about a family, and the main character, the titular character, Tommy, he's in a catatonic state. He's deaf, dumb, and blind.
And this is after a traumatic accident where his birth father shoots his mother's lover. So it's a little bit of a messy plot line.
So the whole show is about his journey, being hysterically deaf, dumb, and blind, to becoming really good at pinball and becoming this big celebrity that everyone kind of worships. And the show's all about his journey growing up and how he eventually is cured.
Overall, it's about the importance of family and the importance of, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say personal identity, but like finding the good things in life, appreciating what you have, things like that.
It's all about the importance of having those relationships in your life and how that keeps him going.
There's a lot of themes of like trauma and such throughout it, and eventually Tommy, well, you'll see when you come see the show.
Is there a happy ending?
Yeah, I would say there is. I would say there's a lot of growth that happens over the show. It's definitely not a happy show from the start, but I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned.
It's really freaking good. Like, you just come see it. It's amazing. The music's great, the cast is great. Everything about it is gonna be amazing. So yeah, please come see it.
They're talking about my generation. Very cool.
You know, listening to them, I get the music.
Gazing at them, I get the heat.
Okay, all right. We can go on for hours with this, but alas, it's time to say goodbye for this week. I'm James Milan.
And I'm Drew Weisberg. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you back here next week, and long live rock.
Oh boy, what's next?
No, who's next?
Oh, you saved me. Good night.
You can always check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACMi News. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll find us at youtube.com/ACMi News. If you have any news tips for us or wish to become a citizen journalist, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by ACMI Studio A at 85 Park Avenue.